Miami-Dade County passed an ordinance a few years ago where we have this imaginary line in Dade County that says you can build inside this line, but not outside this line. Outside this line, it's ag only, right? They took a couple thousand acres right off two major highways in the northwest portion of the county and the southeast portion of the county. And they said, this is outside the imaginary line. You can't do anything out here except agriculture, right? Or truck parking. So they just activated a lot of this land that was kind of underutilized, and you could, pave it over, put in the proper drainage, lights, all that stuff. But we were able to add a tremendous amount of parking spaces in an area that you could still buy land, at an affordable enough price where you could make those improvements.
Welcome back to the ThinkFreight Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Werdine. I'm excited to have Jake Guso. He's the co-founder and CEO at Rig Hut. Jake, welcome to the pod, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Thomas. Excited to be here.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. You guys are doing some interesting things with truck parking. It's a massive issue within the industry. I've had Truck Parking Club on in the past, and I'm interested in learning more about Rig Hut. See what you guys are doing and how you guys are also trying to kind of help and solve this massive issue we have with truck parking. So why don't we dive right into kind of your background, kind of who you are, how old you are, and kind of what led you to get kind of involved with truck parking in the industry.
Sure. Excuse me. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but our original lens from which we viewed the truck parking challenge is from a real estate operator's perspective, right? That's kind of where I spent the majority of my career. So the original vision was, hey, we're going to add more supply, right? That was how we thought we were going to make an impact on the problem. We were going to buy, build, and operate truck parking facilities. The short version of the story is the first thing we did was spin up a management company where we were actually operating facilities on behalf of third parties and really learning the business from a first person perspective, boots on the ground fashion. And as we started growing that business, we were looking for technology that was going to help us scale the management business, and then we could eventually implement that into our real estate business. And it simply did not exist at the time. So yeah, we started building it out step by step.
No, that's really interesting. So with your background in real estate, like what kind of real estate what kind of deals were you typically involved in, and how long were you doing those kind of like transactions before you kind of got involved in the truck parking space?
The real estate business was surprisingly not much to do with industrial, right? It was really retail and office properties down here in South Florida. We did some stuff in the Midwest as well. I can't remember the name of the person that led us onto, the truck parking kind of challenge and opportunity, but it was some colleague in the real estate business, right? And the first site that we researched, to kind of our detriment, which I can get into later, was a site named Miami Truck Parking. I bring this up almost every time I talk about our story. So it's the best located site in South Florida. It has the highest quality of amenities. It's a beautiful site, landscaping. They've got food trucks. They've got domino tables, card tables, showers, truck repair, the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah. So we walked into that facility and we started talking to the security guy and asking about rates and occupancy. And at the time he was at $750 a month and $30 a day. Right. Yeah. And he was 100% occupied with a wait list. So that was kind of the initial light bulb. And this was, 2021 or 2020-ish. Like this was still pandemic era. Yeah. So that was the light bulb when we were like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm. Now, do you know how many spots? I just pulled up Miami truck parking. It looks like a beautiful facility. It's you said it was $30 a day back then. It's now gone up to $38 a day. It's a fully gated community, 24/7 access. How many spots do you think are there? It looks like a couple. Looks like they have a good amount of spots. A couple, maybe 100 plus.
Don't quote me, but it's around 300.
Oh wow. So this is a huge, I can just see there's just like one kind of aerial shot and it looks it looks like there's like 100 plus trucks here, but yeah, there's probably behind that and to the side. There's probably a
Sure.
lot more, and it looks like a really cool facility. So I'm assuming if you guys, this light bulb is kind of going off with you guys, you're seeing this big facility, maybe 300 plus trucks, 200 plus trucks, and you're saying, wow, like he's got, he's getting $300 a day or $30 a day, $750 a month, and he's got a wait list for people that want to park here. So what was kind of your next steps when you guys you said the light bulb went off then. So what was kind of those next steps when you guys were like, okay, what are we going to do next to kind of dip our toes into this more?
So we did some more research, right? Like we were already aware of the supply constraint and that statistic that always gets thrown around that there's 11 drivers per parking space. But that specific site kind of gave us, an early hint at to the gravity of the problem. And then we started looking at other sites and we were like, okay, this guy's at $750 a month. He's, like I said, super high quality site. We started looking at some other sites and they were charging in the same county, right? We're talking like 2-3 miles away, similar quality, not as highly amenitized, but they were, between 400 and 500, say for the sake of simplicity. So now we were like, okay, how is there so much disparity in pricing when there's not that much of a difference in the quality, right? Or the location?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't someone want to save $200-300 a month to go 2-3 miles west, right? You still got highway access. So that's kind of when we started peeling back the onion, and basically what we ended up doing in terms of actual work was we knocked on everybody's, the trailer door, the security guy's door. And our pitch was basically, hey, let us make your life a little bit easier with your manual processes in the yard, which at the time we were solving with service, right? So like, are you having trouble keeping track of your inventory? Okay, we'll take care of that for you. At the time we were using like a empire of Google Sheets is what I called it. Are you having trouble with payments? Are you having trouble with reporting? Are you having trouble keeping up with any past due tenants by any chance, right? And we would kind of solve those problems with service. And then we built the tech to automate all those processes.
Interesting. Yeah. So you guys kind of were already in it, and then we're very easily able to kind of sway these owners like, hey, we can kind of help you solve a few issues here, make things run more efficiently, see where you might be leaving some money on the table. Is that kind of correct?
Correct. Other than the "it was easy" comment, so we got thrown out of so many guys' yards. Like I don't know, you get out of here.
Sure. And, that's an interesting thing because that's very, you coming from the real estate side and not really the freight side, that's very common in the freight industry. It's if you don't have a relationship with them right off the bat, I mean, they'll just take to kick rocks and they're not going to be nice about it. For the freight people, and not to say freight people aren't nice, but like just truck drivers can be a little bit more rough around the edges, especially if they don't know you and they have kind of a distaste for some of the people that they think, hey, they may look at you, Jake, as kind of like how they look at me as a freight broker in my past, where they look at you and say, hey, well, this guy is just coming in and going to take a cut of my money. Like, we don't need that. So what was kind of maybe that proposition to them to get them to say, this is for a benefit, not to your detriment?
Yeah. So I'll preface with what I told you earlier, that our direct customer is the landlord or the parking operator. Right?
Yeah.
We try to provide an exceptional degree of service to our customer, and ancillary to that, we have a lot of interaction with drivers and we try to provide an exceptional level of service to them as well. Yeah. The direct answer to your question and how I think we're having an impact on this problem is we're giving landlords tools to make their facilities more efficient, right? And more profitable. And I know there's an argument as to whether parking should be paid or free. Right. I think it needs to be paid if we want to have a solution to the problem, like within this decade or the next 20 years, right? Because it'll take free parking will take a really long time to implement. And the more we can show landlords and investors that, hey, this is worth pursuing, the more spaces they're going to build. Right.
Right. Now, when you guys maybe started or even now today, you guys aren't directly operating any spaces. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Or you guys, okay, so you guys have no spaces yourself, and you guys are essentially just acting as the platform for the landowners to manage, rent them out, and be more efficient.
Correct. We want to be the company that kind of operates in the background.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how many locations do you guys currently manage, and what's like maybe that total number of truck parking spaces available that are available through Rig Hut?
So we've got, I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, but last I checked, it was
Yeah.
somewhere over 150 yards.
Okay.
Now, some of those come from our kind of original tech platform, so they're a little bit smaller yards. Right now,
Yeah.
Rig Hut's core customer, like what we call our ICP, our ideal customer, is either a portfolio operator, right? So they operate more than one facility, or they operate one, large facility, meaning over 50, 60 spaces. So
Okay.
we've got, for example, we have one yard in Philly that's 100 acres and
Mm.
represents over 1,000 parking spaces, right? So like that makes a
Wow.
big dent in space count. If I had to
Yeah.
guess total number of spaces, we're well into, we might be over 10,000 if I had to guess.
Wow. Wow.
But there's some
Yeah.
big yards in there, right?
No, no, that's fantastic. And you touched on something I was just going to ask next, where it was, how many of those are just in Florida, and how many do you have across the U.S.?
I don't have a breakdown offhand, but we're in many different states. Our
Okay,
highest densities, Florida,
so you guys
Georgia.
are scaling into other states as well.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. It's
what's
getting
kind of
easier to
your
find them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, for sure. And this, I think that people are becoming more like the real estate landowners are also becoming more savvy to kind of this issue. They've kind of seen more on your local news. They've seen more of the bans going on. They've seen more of this truck parking going up. You're seeing more commercial real estate go up for I'm seeing a lot of it in my community for a lot of travel stops for trucks
for
with truck
sure.
parking. And so you're seeing a lot, their tenants are seeing a lot more of it, and these landowners are seeing a lot more of it. I mean, I've had people in my family who have real estate who have been like, hey, like, how can I make money off of my real estate? And I was just like, well, you just kind of have to like, do these small things. And it's like, yeah, you could very easily turn what you have into truck parking, but it's like, you're also, you know, pretty far off of the beaten path. Like some people I know are like they're way out in the boonies, and they could probably find a few local trucking companies that would want to do it, but they're not close to any highways. They have no real amenities. They'd have to spend a lot of money to do things like that.
Yep.
So it just becomes people try to like I said, people are becoming more aware of the issues. So like you said, it's becoming a little bit easier to find some of those spots.
Correct.
What are some of like maybe the determining factors when you guys are like maybe looking to expand, or some of the states you guys are maybe prioritizing? Or are there specific regions with more of an urgent demand that you guys are focusing on?
We're kind of agnostic as to region, right? We want to go where the
Okay.
facilities are currently, and then
Yeah.
it just so happens that we end up in major freight markets. I'd say our highest densities right now are South Florida, Atlanta, Port Newark, Dallas, Dallas Fort Worth. We're starting to get some stuff out in Phoenix, Chicago,
Yeah.
but we're kind of agnostic, right? That's one of the good things of about our business is we're not geographically constrained, right? It's a Zoom call, it's a
Right.
demo.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I guess when I guess for some of the freight brokers who are listening and the truck drivers out there are listening, how can they know that when they send a driver or they send one of their trucks into a rig hut facility, that they know that it's going to be secure, that it's going to have what they're looking for in terms of amenities, or like secure parking, with theft being one of the hot topics in the industry right now. How can they be secure, or know that their vehicles and their freight will be secure?
So they're going to have clear visibility into the level of amenities if they find a facility that's powered by Rig Hut, right? As part of the
Mm.
onboard process, we're very clear on description of amenities. We make them summaries, right? Whether or not it's fence gated, whether or not they've got access control. Is it unique codes? Is it a master code? Is it
Yeah.
lit? Do we have cameras? Do we have security? If it's security, is it remote? Is it on site? Right. So anyone that goes on the site and finds a yard, or if they're directed by a landlord or a parking manager to a facility that uses Rig Hut as its back end, they'll have super clear visibility into the level of security and the level of amenities at that facility.
What are kind of some of the typical, or like more of the I guess, wanted or amenities that you guys are seeing that most facilities have now? Like, is it lighting, cameras, bathroom facilities? What are some of those typical must haves when you're looking, or is it just kind of, are some of these sites just plain Jane just parking?
Yeah, I think that's market dependent, right? If you've got a ton of demand and not a lot of supply, landlords sometimes can get away with less improvements, right?
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest immediate differentiator that we see just when we track demand, like sometimes we have portfolio, some of the portfolio operators, they'll have one site nearby that's some sort of aggregate surface, right? Like a gravel surface or millings or something. And then they've got another one that's asphalt or concrete, and it's clearly marked and
Right.
delineated and there's space numbers, right? All else being equal, that asphalt yard is going to get full first. And then they'll move back onto the aggregate surface. I'd say access control has become very important, right?
Yeah.
Historically, if a landlord or an operator has any form of access control, typically they've been giving out master codes, right? So we're working on a product that will launch in a couple of days that will provide unique access credentials to each driver, right? And have access
That's cool.
logs so they can keep track of who's coming in and out. Obviously, the facility needs to be lit. No one wants to be parking, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in a dark yard. Those are kind of the basics, right? And
Yeah.
then, so I'll say this as well. Most Rig Hut customers currently offer what we call long-term parking, right? Which is typically monthly. It's
Okay.
not so much the over-the-road driver typically. A lot of
Yeah.
our facilities do take daily reservations, but that's not what they're optimizing for. So there's
Right.
not as much of a need for that kind of hotel guest style amenity list, right? Like
Yeah.
bathrooms typically not required if it's monthly parking. We're just dropping the truck, getting in the car, going home. No food, no diesel, things like that, right?
No, that makes sense. So you guys, a lot is more targeted at specifically the long term parking as opposed to OTR, which we guys still do offer, but it's more geared toward longer term.
Right. Typically.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's always doesn't matter whether it's long term parking or OTR parking. It's parking is an issue, and
Yep.
and so and something that's interesting, and like I mentioned earlier, it's just some communities are just all outright banning truck parking. So it's becoming a lot more of kind of that issue. Like, hey, when I'm home, where do I park my truck in my kind of area here? It used to be a lot more truck friendly, where they were allowing trucks to park on the side of the road or right in
Yep.
front of their house, and now they've completely disallowed that, even if they're just a bobtail without a trailer. So it's becoming more of a headache. Um, just to live life outside of the truck as well. So it's good to see that there's lots of options coming out there for whether it's OTR drivers, but also for the long term as well. Because I think that everyone needs parking. It's like you said,
100%.
there's that stat that goes around, like one spot for every 11 drivers, and not sure how accurate that is in 2024. We've added a lot of truck parking, but
We
so let me
have
ask you.
that stat always gets thrown around. I think since the beginning, like anyone that's really researched the issue will probably say that statistic is off.
Yeah.
They're hard to find, right? That's one of the challenges that we had when
Oh
we
yeah.
first started building Riga. Like we were just saying, sometimes the only way that we could find a yard was if we drove by it, or if we happened to go on like Google Street View and we saw a phone number, right?
Exactly.
I think it's worse in some places. For example, where we are, Miami, I would venture to say there are more than 11 drivers, running routes down here per parking space. Port Newark, definitely. But then you get into some areas like, I won't call anybody out, but you get into some areas that maybe there is an equilibrium already, right?
Yeah. No, that's that you're spot on, because there's such a high density of trucks, and there's such a high density of people, and there's really nowhere in, like you say, Miami. There's just such limited space for, like, traffic is already crazy,
It's crazy.
As it is, and it's like, okay, you add on like taking away, what do you take away to add truck parking in Miami, right? Like there's
Miami
space to
actually
begin
has
with.
a really interesting story about that. So
Love to hear it.
obviously, Miami geographically land constrained. We got water on both sides, right?
Yeah,
Like most municipalities, Miami-Dade County and the municipalities within Miami-Dade County typically do not want, higher intensive industrial uses. Typically, truck parking
yeah,
is one of those uses, right? They don't want it. They don't want to approve it. You're almost never going to get a property rezoned through anything
yeah.
that requires a
It's
public
not
hearing.
sexy. It's not
Yeah.
sexy to them.
So I don't know who drove this, but Miami-Dade County passed an ordinance a few years ago where we have this imaginary line in Dade County that says you can build inside this line, but not outside this line. Outside this line, it's ag only, right? They took a
Okay.
couple thousand acres right off two major highways in the northwest portion of the county and the southeast portion of the county. And they said, this is outside the imaginary line. You can't do anything out here except agriculture, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
truck parking. So they just activated a lot of this land that was kind of underutilized, and you could, pave it over, put in the proper drainage, lights, all that stuff. But we were able to add a tremendous amount of parking spaces in an area that you could still buy land, at an affordable enough price where you could make those improvements, right? And those are
Yeah.
the most affordable parking rates in Dade County now.
Mm. Why do you think more municipalities aren't taking that kind of approach?
Well, it is the government, so not
Fair.
not
That's
not
fair.
many things make sense.
That's very
But all
fair.
else being equal, right? If you're a municipality and you have a vacant piece of land and you could you could build an apartment building and help with the housing problem. You could build retail, right, and provide some more amenities and entertainment to the residents that already live in your municipality. You could even build an office building, right, if you wanted to draw some traffic outside of the downtown areas and into here, into whatever the suburb is.
Mm.
Anything industrial is very low on the totem pole for them, right? Because if they're talking to the constituency or to their residents, what's the pitch for building truck parking to the residents, or for building, a 1 million square foot distribution center? It just gets a lot of pushback. But
Yeah,
everybody wants
absolutely.
their package delivered like same day, right?
You stole the word. You took the words right out of my mouth. You must have seen my mouth opening for that one, because I was just about to say, yeah. I mean, you can tell people, hey, if you want your package in one day, we need truck parking. Yeah,
100%.
it's very interesting. Yeah, I've always thought that that dynamic between the customer kind of not realizing how their products get there in one day and to their doorstep in one day, and then saying, ew, industrial trucks, we don't want them near our houses, they're loud.
Right.
Crime issues. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's very interesting, and I think it's a very delicate balance. And I think more communities should take kind of that approach to what Miami-Dade did, and kind of look at, hey, where we have some underutilized space that maybe is even in more of the industrial area, that we can just say, hey, let's build truck parking here, because it's something that is needed, and we can, the community, we can overall serve the community, kind of in a different way,
For sure. Another thing that's been done in Florida, if anyone listening to this wants some ideas on how to add parking, we've seen guys activate pieces of property that sit under the overhead transmission lines, right? So
Mm,
if a property is sitting under the T lines, right? Like here they run pretty much up and down I-95 from Key
yeah,
West to Jacksonville, or Miami to Jacksonville on 95, right? And under the lines, you can't do anything, right? They're, I don't know,
right,
30 feet over your head. You're not going to build a building. So some guys have convinced the Florida utility company, FPL, to let them lease or operate on a rev share. I'm not exactly sure how it works from an operational perspective, but they're parking
right,
trucks under the transmission lines. It's limited. You can't do hazmat. You can't stack containers, right? You can basically only park dry vans, reefers, flatbeds, things like that.
yeah.
But it's a piece of land that you otherwise can't do anything with.
Now, is that kind of land, is that being more utilized for the OTR drivers that are just kind of coming in and out, or is that being more utilized for the long term stuff as well?
I'd say
Because that's
both.
interesting.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
that's
generally
that's super
highway
interesting.
accessibility, right?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It makes sense. Obviously, no hazmat loads because obviously, we don't want any damage to the power stuff,
You'll
and if
knock
there's an
out
issue with the
power for the
hazmat
whole
load,
state.
yeah, yeah, for the whole state for God knows how long. So, um, are you guys? I want to ask, so I know you guys are doing a lot with operators, but are you guys teaming up with any like truck stops that are already doing truck parking, any rest areas or anything like that to kind of give some of those maybe OTR? I know you guys are more focused on the long term, but do you guys have any of those like potential for the OTR side as well to get more involved in that?
For sure, we do. Specifically, the truck stop route, right?
Yeah.
The reason we focused on monthly is that's simply just the way the cookie kind of crumbled, right? That's where we
Oh,
were
for
getting
sure.
a lot of activity, but we see a huge opportunity to add a lot of value to the truck stop operators.
Yeah, no, for sure. You kind of take where the business, takes you, and then you kind of expand from there as you kind of see the demand and the opportunities. And definitely, there's a lot of opportunities in the OTR space. So yeah, obviously collaborating with truck stops and other places in the future. I guess let me ask you. So where do you kind of foresee? You and I were kind of talking off camera a little bit and about truck, the truck parking club. I'm sorry, Texas Trucking Show. Geez, Texas Trucking Show. I went to a couple years ago, and there was no parking operators there. And last year or earlier this year when I went, there was I believe five or six different, both from the operator perspective and then the marketplace perspective.
For
So I
sure.
mean, what kind of trends maybe do you foresee over the next maybe 2 or 3 years, and do you anticipate there being any shifts in some of that demand or the supply for truck parking?
I think there's going to be a shift in supply for sure.
Yeah,
We're starting to see early consolidation of operators, right? So if you look at
hmm,
the what we call the managed truck parking market right now, super
yeah,
fragmented, right? A lot of
very,
mom and pop style operators, difficult to find, limited systems, limited online visibility, right? Now we're starting to see some institutional esque players enter the
mm,
space with big money behind them, right, to build brands of truck parking. And we're starting to
yeah,
see some of the regional operators, like something that was just announced last week at a conference we were at, Realize Truck Parking, an operator, and Store My
yeah,
Truck, the oldest operator in the country and the largest operator in the country, merged. So they're going to
mm,
be up to, I don't know, I think they're over 100 facilities or 80 facilities. They'll be the largest in the country by far. I think that's going to keep happening. I think it's going to go from many small operators to probably few larger operators, right?
yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen, right? It's kind of got to play out. I think the larger companies are going to be able to drive efficiencies and provide a more efficient product out into the market.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're spot on. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, whether that's, um, yeah, I just think there's going to be a lot of consolidation on that end. I think, like you said, we're already starting to see it, and kind of like anything in this industry, as kind of that need develops or we see kind of, hey, like the infrastructure being built out here, the big companies then come in and say, hey, let's buy this so that we don't have to build this infrastructure out, we can just implement and then start utilizing this kind of to the best of our abilities.
For sure.
What's I want to before we kind of wrap, I guess, where do I know you guys have some things coming out here in the future. Is there anything maybe you can kind of tell us? This will come out in a couple weeks here, so is there anything you can maybe tell us ahead of time that you guys are excited about with maybe some of the new releases, or kind of how you guys are evolving over the next year or so?
We've got a lot
No
of things
pressure.
on the
No pressure.
roadmap, right?
Yeah.
I'll give the one that we're launching this week, which
Cool.
is our access control integration, right? So
Yeah.
we're going to be able to track which reservations, which active customers are going in and out of the facility. It will allow some landlords to replace some of their high capex hardware costs, right? So This product will kind of replace a kiosk if someone's using a kiosk, right, with a ticketing system or something like that. It'll provide landlords with access logs, right? So timestamps on the in and the out, and that will allow us to tie into some other cool things that we'll release in the future. But that's the big one that we're launching now.
No, that's cool because it's ties into fraud prevention. It ties into keeping your yard safe. It ties into keeping the drivers safe. So that's really 100%. Cool. That's really cool that you guys are working to implement that kind of technology, that broader technology.
And drivers won't have to get out of the truck anymore.
And drivers don't have to get out of the truck anymore. Hey, that's the best part, right?
Yeah,
it makes it more easy for the driver. So, Jake, I really appreciate you coming on and talking truck parking, talking about what you guys are building, building over there in Miami. So if the audience wants to get involved, they want to get in touch, they want to learn a little bit more, how can they find you guys online?
Check out our website. It's therighut.com. Look us up on Twitter, Rig Hut Truck Parking, or shoot us an email. Right, we're always available. Awesome. Me and Jose, our contact info is everywhere. Feel free to call us.
Awesome. Make sure you guys check out both Jake and Jose at Rig Hut. I'll have all their links in the comments or the show notes. If you like today's podcast, please give it a like and review. It does help us out a ton. And don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at thinkfreight.io. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode.